Welcome to the Clause YouTube channel.
Together, we strive for a safer, secure, and more stable world.
Good evening, Brigadier Rathore.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
And good evening to all the viewers of Laws. Today is the first podcast what we have from Rajasthan and titled as Jaipur Military Voices. And Jaipur Military Voices, Jaipur have a lot of, I would say, treasure of veterans who shared their views and shared their ideas of what's happening around the world. Today we discuss basically what's happening in the world along with the Trump's tariff and how it have triggered the strategic moves of the nations. And with that, actually what's happening is it is unpacking a lot of things for the world to come through. Maybe as it grows, the tariff tussle, I won't call it a war, a tariff tussle which is going on, it'll realign a lot of thought process of the nations and their own relationships. Firstly, it affects the economic, their own, I would say, their economic power, the economic desires, economic upcomings. It will also lead to the military strategic, some sort of realignment because it affects the military affairs also. And with that, in the backdrops, I think we would like to cover the worldwide impact of the tariffs and the implications among the major nations. And particularly in the last, what is there for our country, Bharat, and how it is going to take action to nullify the negative effects of the tariffs. A word about tariff, I would say that tariff is nothing new. It had been there earlier also. And in our country, the parlance, it was called excise duties, export excise duties, import excise duties. It had been there. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Gajendra, how are you?
All well, sir.
Good evening, sir. Good
Is
evening.
here.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, Gajendra. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. There was another program going on, so I had to wind up quickly and then
Sir.
switch this side.
So we just started with the introduction, sir. And since this is the first podcast of our regional series and known as Jaipur Military Voices, and Jaipur has a lot of, I would say, treasure house of veterans with the intellectual and a thought process which can put across to the world, I would say, not only our own country and how things are going to happen. And today's topic is very dynamic topic because it will cover not only the tariff part, it is basically global realigning of strategies in response to Trump's tariff. What I was telling that tariff is nothing new. We have had excise duties, import and export excise duties. That is the form. And probably what has happened is how the things work out. The tariffs, which are it is something like a tariff tussle. I won't call it a conflict or a tariff warfare. It is a tariff tussle which is going on, which does have an impact on the military affairs in the world. Because with the realignment of the tariff and economic impact on various things, it will also affect the relationship between the nations that will take part and will be something to do with the military affairs. And maybe as it comes, it might remain for some time, maybe it is streamlined and positively thinking of it that it will streamline many issues across the world. With that, I'll first request General Sudhakar Jee to uh, cover the overall aspect of the tariff tussle which is going on, and we'll cover the latest meetings which are going on. The world leaders are meeting, and something is coming out of that because ultimately they have to decide which way to take. So over to General Sudhakar Jee.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much. Good evening to you, Brigadier Virender and Brigadier Rathore. Heartiest congratulations. I think this is a very golden milestone as far as Jaipur is concerned, and it's an extension of clause event taking place. under the aegis of the DG of Clause, Lieutenant General Dushan Singh. We should thank him and the entire ecosystem which is supporting us to conduct this particular event. As far as the point which you have raised, well, we need to understand very briefly, without any elaborate dilation of the subject, what is the environment obtaining? The environment obtaining in the world in the backdrop of pandemic, Russo-Ukraine war, and the Hamas and Israel, or Iran versus Israel, the Middle East conflict, plus Operation Sindoor, which is an ongoing activity from India's side. In this backdrop, there are things which are happening related to economy. And what are the things which are actually impacting the economy? The supply chain disruption, rise in fuel, fertilizer, and food. It is impacting not only the global south, but also the global north. So much so, some of the countries in Europe, I think Germany, if I respect my memory, they have officially announced a recession. And if you go into the ecosystem of the economy in the Europe, you find most of the economies are experiencing hyperinflation or deflation. Same is the case with USA. They may or may not be stating or accepting, but they are going through a kind of a very rough ride. So that takes me to the basic issue is that there are two authors. If you allow me through your this thing camera, if I can show, I'll show a book. Is the book, the heading, the covering page visible? Can you see it? Virender,
Visible,
can you see?
visible, sir. Visible, yes.
War by Other Means. And
Very
the
easy.
authors are Robert D. Blackwell and Jennifer Harris. This was based on a kind of a research in which the sum and substance of this book is that the geoeconomics and the statecraft. Geoeconomics and the statecraft, they have highlighted one aspect that despite the fact America is a superpower, call it by any name, declining power, superpower, global power, whatever it has not been able to apply its geoeconomic strength to the advantage of the statecraft. And they have given example, if you have time, go through this book, that China, on the other hand, despite having taken off pretty late, has overtaken the USA in many of the attributes and parameters related to geoeconomics. It is not geoeconomics alone. Many issues are connected to geoeconomics. You have geotechnology, geostrategy, you have geodiplomacy, you have there is a new term which I came to know. I think Virendra, you were there that day. Operation Sindoor and assessment. That professor who was from Cambridge, Mr. Jain, he said geopsychology is a subject. Psychology is a thing which is actually dominating and actually making an impact, a serious impact on the psyche of the people of the Westerners. So these are the issues which are actually compelling people go jitters, I would say. Why? Because USA as on today is faced with many challenges. One of the important challenges is that the economy. $37 trillion US debt is no mean amount. What it means to a common man is every year they have to dole out something to the tune of little more than 1 trillion US dollar towards interest or debt servicing. This debt at one point in time was 123% debt to GDP ratio. Now it has gone up to almost about 130%, which is very, very high. Plus, for running the administration, annually they require something to the tune of 6 trillion US dollar. Today, their revenue generation is just about 4 trillion. This is one of the primary reasons as to Elon Musk. Why did he quit? In addition, you have added B, that bill of 5 trillion. So 37 plus 5, if you add, it comes to 42 trillion. That means your debt, your America is being pushed into such a kind of a spiral that there is no escape. But for Pakistan-like story, moving around with a kotori in hand, you will be going from country to country for your survival. That day is not far. Under these circumstances, you would see that Donald Trump, people say he is not a politician. Try to understand. He is definitely not a politician. He is a businessman. But the experience of 4 years Thereafter, absence of 4 years experience, and thereafter coming back to power in Donald Trump 2.0 has given him a very heady mix of being a businessman and an economist, or I would say businessman and a politician. So he may not be able to perform or demonstrate his activities with the finance, with the global finance that we are used to, but he knows that which direction he is going. One of the commitment that he made during the election campaigning was to bring this mindless conflict of Russia-Ukraine war to an end within 24 hours. He did not know the history, nor does he have an appetite for history. Because Russia-Ukraine war, more you know, less you realize that actually there is greater depth than what is actually coming to your knowledge. He has no appetite for history. He has no appetite for chronology of events. To a man or a leader like him, if you try to take a classroom kind of a class, which happened today or yesterday in Alaska, Putin actually and Trump had 3 hours meeting. What did they have? To my, if I join the dots with whatever little bits and pieces information that have come to me, Putin took a history class from 13th century till now. Why Ukraine cannot be made to have any other status than a neutral status? Why Ukraine cannot be a NATO member? How this conflict has been triggered by none other than NATO? How James Baker, way back on 9th of February 1990, having a dialogue with Mikhail Gorbachev in Moscow itself, assured Mikhail Gorbachev was not keen for collapse of Berlin Wall. He did not want East and West to join. But he was given an assurance that not an inch of mile or not an inch of expansion of sphere of influence of NATO will be towards the east. Not only to the east of East Germany, he said entire frontier of Europe. So under these circumstances of lack of trust, and again, there are many other issues. One of the important issues, Ukraine had the nuclear weapons. When USSR disintegrated into 15 CIAs, Ukraine also happened to be one of the provinces. When the nuclear weapons or the command authority was handed over to USSR or Russia, then there was a security guarantee signed and assured by none other than Russia, UK, and America. So what happened? Why did Russia attack? So therefore, it brings me to the final point is that there are many, lots of water have flown down, whichever river you take, Dnieper River, let's call it, a Dnieper River in Ukraine. Okay, so people need to understand what compelled, why did Putin launch an attack on 24th February 2022? What compelled him? Because he himself was offering that why don't you take Russia as a member of NATO as well in 2000 to Bill Clinton and subsequently to George Bush as well. So under these circumstances, you have to understand more than 30% of the people towards the east of Ukraine, they speak Russian language. And in the constitution at one point in time, the Russian language used to be considered as a national language, but it was downgraded, it was removed. So the Russian language was actually deleted from the scope of purview of the constitution. Thereafter, there was an ethnic cleansing. So as an ex-superpower, when you are seeing that your own people are being cleansed in the neighborhood, would you not like to take step to actually prevent such kind of genocide? So that is what exactly happened. Today, 20% of the land, and mind you, in the April 2022, the Prime Minister of UK came rushing when the agreement was about to be reached between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul. He came rushing to tell this man that don't stop the conflict. Why? Because they were very optimistic and hopeful that Putin can be defeated, number one, or Russia can be defeated. Number two, they were also very optimistic that there is going to be a regime change. So today, 3 years, 3.5 years, or 4 years later, now they have come to a realization that Putin cannot be defeated. He is a very bold and very seasoned military leader and a president. Number two, militarily, you cannot defeat Russia, and militarily also, you cannot change the regime like the way they had done in Ukraine. So, under these circumstances, America has to do a lot of mellow down kind of negotiation and take the thing ahead to bring this mindless conflict to an end. That's it.
Sir, I will request you later on to take the security and military implications, particularly the India-US relationship and geopolitical leverage of the issue, and a new, I would say, global economic order. So thereafter, first I'll go to Brigadier Rathore, then I'll request General Sundarji to cover these aspects. Brigadier Rathore, in the new, I would say, the tariff tussles which are going on and the global realignment, I want you to throw some light on the Asia's rise. There is some thought process and the shifting trade partnerships which are going to take place, where it is as of now coming to economic bifurcation. Maybe it will have some impact overall the world, and even the industry part which is there. Some industries might develop in the homegrown states, or maybe some industries might come to an agreement that the tariff which is there, how to reduce it within their own circles, maybe manufacturing cost and other cost, and meeting the requirement of the overall economic and financial requirements. Over to Brigadier Rathore.
Right. Thank you very much, Brigadier Birendra. At the outset, my compliments to you to start this chapter of Senzos at Jaipur, and I wish good luck that our chapter grows in leaps and bounds. Now, before I actually come to the trade negotiations and the tariffs and the other things, a very pertinent issue which Jan Sudhakar Jee mentioned, that one needs to go back in history. It's very important that you must learn from the history. And I mean, we are all aware that India, at the time of independence, we didn't align with anyone. We went on to a non-aligned kind of a arrangement, and that was the need of the hour. But as the times progressed and the world order, as it keeps changing, we at some time we realized that that non-aligned kind of a thing may not be the right issue, because you need to have the national interests first, and keeping the national interest first, you then realign your policies, your foreign policy, your economic policy, your strategic ties, and that's how we saw. And this entire thing came clearly out in when the present dispensation came into power in 2014, and then we focused on various issues like economic advances. We went in for Make in India. That was the buzzword those days, and it still is the buzzword, and we've seen this in the recent conflict which is ongoing, Op Sindoor, wherein our Make in India equipment has done wonders. And of course, the other thing which is talked world over is your digital India, the UPI and things like that. Now and for economic growth, there should be money in the hands of the people and money with the government. The advancement will take place only when the money is available. So now the money, when it comes to the people's hand, earlier on people were having money. India, I mean, you can say that people talk that Indian household has got more gold than it is owned by a number of countries in the world. So that money was there always, but through digitization, this came into the system, and that money is getting into circulation, and it is going into the development of the country. Having said that, let's come to the tariff issue. When you do trade, you would always like to have trade at your favorable terms. you would always be looking for a market. Say when you talk, have trade negotiations with America. Minister Shri Piyush Goyal was sitting in America and negotiating on behalf of India. He was looking at the Indian interests, and so was probably the Americans looking their own interests. India, population is our power. Everybody would like to trade with India because we are a huge market wherein they can. So they would like to have their product coming here and have negotiations in such a manner that we also. So probably these are all the pressure tactics which are being played, in particular by Mr. Donald Trump, and that's how the situation has come in, wherein he's believing in the Sam Dam Dand Bhed. Okay, you don't agree to this, then I'll put you more tariffs. So probably this war this tariff conflict will go on, and we will see how the things pan out. Later on, probably we can look at what is the way ahead for India. How do we go about the entire thing? This is going to stay because every country will look for its own interest. So probably we have to understand that this is the situation. Now, what is the way ahead for us? So probably we'll have to think on those lines and go ahead with that. So with that, probably I'll hand back to you, sir, and let's progress on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier Rathore. I think the aspects which have been covered, I would say that we have gone back into history. What Jalan Sundar Ji was saying is very correct. And I think you mentioned that. So, like, non-alignment movement was one which was there. And with this, I will now request Jalan Sundar Ji to, Sudhakar Ji, to cover up the impact on the security and military implications. And India-US relationships, and the geopolitical leverage due to tariffs, what is going to happen, and the global economic order which is going to come up. So with that, can you see the new alignments coming up and how it is going to impact our own India and other countries and the US relationship? Over to Jalan Sudhakar Ji.
Yeah, you have made very significant points, and allow me to touch very quickly, very quick points. Firstly, our viewers will do well if they understand that the existing architecture of world order is based on transatlantic relationship. Now, what is transatlantic relationship? You have US, you have Canada, and this side of Atlantic, you have UK and the European Union. Okay, so now transatlantic relationship, the threat in 20th century is not the same threat in 21st century. So what was the threat in 20th century? The threat in 20th century, it was a bipolar world. Communist towards one end and democracy towards another one, largest democracy. What is the threat in 21st century? 21st century, no matter what Europe or Western alliances cook up and develop the narrative to be, Putin is not going to attack Europe with tanks on. There is a new threat which has emerged. The new threat is, people need to understand this, that Europe had twice the population of Africa in 1950s. And the population of Africa became twice the population of Europe by the turn of 20th century, that is beginning of 21st century. It is estimated that the population of Africa is going to cross 10 times the population what it is today. If the population goes up by that kind of a quantum and a rapidity, then they require livelihood, they require socio-economic development. Which country in the world is investing money in Africa for socio-economic development? There is a threat which is coming by the time. The threat is known as boat people in Europe. The real threat is there is a demographic swap taking place from Northwest African countries and the Middle East. So this is one part. Second part I wish to cover in response to your question is that way back in 1995, I am aware of the fact that BRICS came into existence in 2007 or 8. But take these 5 countries. the GDP per capita, the PPP, purchasing power parity, percentage of GDP of these five countries in 1995 was around 16.6% of the global GDP. In 1995, the percentage of GDP in PPP terms of the G7 countries was around 43.6%. Come to 2025, all of us will be surprised that the BRICS is no longer a country or grouping of five countries. It's a grouping of 11 countries. 32 more countries are about to join. Population is 50%, whereas G7 countries have got 9.6% of the total population of the world. And the GDP of the BRICS countries, I'm talking about the 11 countries put together, has already crossed 50% of the global GDP. And so, what is the GDP of G7 countries? It has declined from 43.6% to just about 28.2%. In times ahead, it is estimated that the G7 countries' GDP is going to come down to as low as 25 or maybe 20% in foreseeable future. So, what is it that I'm trying to say? I'm trying to share when you talk about the BRICS countries, I'm talking about the global south. Out of four main countries in the world, four countries, the top four countries in terms of PPP are China, USA, India, and Japan. There are three out of four countries which are in top four from Asia. People say this is Asia century, but the statistics, if you take the group of G20, tabulate the data of past 5 years, what stands out very distinctly is that India is the brightest spot. It is the shining spot as far as economy is concerned, development is concerned, and education, social, the SDI indices, everything. What is it that I'm trying to say? That I'm trying to say that while there may be a distinction between the global south and north, east and west, India is geostrategically located at a pivot wherein it has got the credibility and reliability to bring east with the west and north with the south. Tariff or no tariff is just a temporary enigma
Yeah.
which the president of USA is resorting to for what? What is he trying to achieve? He is trying to basically achieve what his predecessors have not been able to achieve. What is it? He wants to make America great again. How do you make America great again? The biggest challenge before America today is the economy. 37 trillion about which I spoke plus 5 trillion. How does he recoup? Does he continue to keep printing dollars? The Congress has already reached its ultimate limit. Beyond this, they cannot go in for printing of dollars. They will be perpetually in kind of a debt. Even if they print, what happens to the Brent agreement which they signed in 1973? Saudi Arabia is the country with which USA had signed. The essential component of the agreement was that every quantum of oil or denominator of oil to be sold, it has to be sold in dollar. And every dollar profit which is made out of the selling of oil, fossil fuel, that will be invested in USA, and there are many other issues. But is that happening? It is not happening, unfortunately. The countries have started using their domestic constituency or the currencies to buy oil, energy security. So, therefore, what is it taking us to? It is taking us to one crucial point that this is Asia century. In Asia itself, India is the shining spot, the brightest spot, with 6.5 and above or 6.3 rate of growth of GDP and above. There is no country which is close to India as far as the economic growth is concerned. Now, coming to the tariff. Now, this tariff, will it make any impact? I don't think so. As a student of geopolitics, it will not make any tangible impact. India has started foreseeing this particular eventuality coming its way. We have started diversifying. Earlier, we
Yeah.
used to have 20 countries to which we used to send our export. Now,
Yeah.
the basket of 20 has expanded to, 50 countries. So, therefore, I would say it would be a tight slap to the leadership of USA if they do not take cognizance of these kind of changing dimensions of the global churning which is taking place. Now we come to the military component and the security which you alluded to in your talk. How is it going to impact? It is already impacting. Now, by virtue of USA having taken Munir for lunch and called him for second time, made him as part of the Central Command, US Command, doesn't mean the dynamics and the high-end objective of the global order changes. Same USA has published the white paper and the national security strategy not once, more than 5 times, that China is the threat number one. If at all they have to contain, counter, and contest any country, it is China, 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 China. China has overtaken USA in almost everything, be it technology or economy, because same China, way back in 1970s, if you compare the Western economies, when I say Western economies, I'm talking about Western Europe, America, and Canada. They used to dominate the global economy, 70% of the global economy. China was nowhere to be seen. Now, today, China, all by itself, one country only, it has got trade with more than 120. My figure says 137, 140, but there is an authentic source which is saying don't not to cross 120. 120 out of 192 countries or 202 countries is not mean a number. Number two, it is investing money in BRI in a very intelligent manner. We may say anything, may give any interpretation, but BRI is actually to extend its dominance in the world by virtue of investing its surplus dollars. Number three, China is looking at 2049 to rejuvenate its status as a middle kingdom. It wants to redeem its century of humiliation. In order to achieve that, it wants that economy, whatever benefits it is deriving because of geoeconomics, it wants to actually spread to almost all countries in the world, thereby enhancing its dominance. And from the economic dominance, actually triggers the military dominance. A case in point, recently on 19th of June, they had a informal or kind of a talk, first meeting amongst the additional secretaries of foreign ministry of Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China at Kunming. Now, was it merely an administrative or an informal talk when Pakistan and Bangladesh have got 81 to 82% of its military hardware being imported from China? So, what else is left? And it is economically dependent on China. If the military hardware being so much, and for every military activity, there is an invisible tacit support being provided by China. Does it actually warrant any time to be waited for to become a military alliance? No. So these are the emerging dimensions which are happening. So to sum it up, in response to the questions you raised, global politics or geopolitics is definitely undergoing change. There is a shift taking place. A realignment is in order. BRICS is the biggest threat to the global order. That is the Western alliance. Number two, the architecture, that transatlantic architecture, which is the mainstay of any kind of rules-based international order, if at all it exists today, is in a state of collapse and ineffectiveness. There is a requirement to revamp this particular thing. Military domination. Military domination, yes, it is uncontestable. With more than 800 military forces, which USA has, China doesn't have as many. But in times ahead, I'm sure China is making all-out steps to actually go and expand the footprint of the military bases. Its string of pearls, or whatever you call it, different names, it is increasing by the day. Number three, geoeconomics. China would not fight a kinetic war with any country. Till date, you tell me, after Vietnam War, has China ever fought with anybody? It will win a war without fighting one. That is application of geoeconomics. And last but not the least is that under these kind of circumstances, when the tariff is being imposed, it is basically to revamp and strengthen the existing economy status of USA, hoping that perhaps the trade imbalance which is existing today, not in favor of USA, will become favorable in times ahead, which is actually a $1 million question, because in same USA, one of the presidents, Ronald Reagan, during his administration. Similar kind of proposal and initiatives had been initiated. The final finding was Ronald Reagan, it is making rounds in social media, is that tariff is such a game. When you impose on any country, when the product comes to USA, the cost is borne by the customer or the consumer of you. If the cost is borne by the customer or the consumer, then the impact of inflation is felt, not only felt, it changes the livelihood and the standard of living of the customer or the consumer. Therefore, it leads to hyperinflation, it leads to expansion of the unemployment problem and such like interrelated issues in the society. So my opinion, my stake is that if USA has to sustain itself as extended kind of a power as a superpower, then it would do good by having predictability, be it in the economics or in the military domain, and ensure that some order of semblance of order of rules-based international order is followed. Otherwise, the steps that USA is taking, actually it is leading and speaking aloud about disruption, not coordination. It is talking about disaster, not about cooperation. It is talking about competition, not about collaboration. It is talking about confrontation, avoidable confrontation, not about collaboration, cooperation, and working together in order to face the common challenges, which is climate change, terrorism, and also you have other issues such as the pandemic, which are arising by the day. Now the new warfare has started, tariff, which is going to take us to nowhere, and it will unnecessarily retrograde the entire progress the world has made in such kind of challenging times.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I think you have covered all the aspects which are required. I'll give only 30 seconds to Brigadier Rathore to give his views. What are the implications for India and how we should go about it? Because I think we have overshot the time. We are
Okay.
supposed to half an hour. So
I,
very
I
briefly, you can
think.
cover.
Thank you very much. I think it was very well covered by General Sudhakar Jee. As I mentioned, India has had already started long back. It's not new. I mean, what we need to have active and flexible role in the world. We need to have more partnerships and have healthy partnerships, which we have started like the BRICS. Economic growth, as I mentioned, that economic growth is very important. We've done that. So and of course. GST. So that is the way, more money in the hands of people, and probably that's how we'll progress. So there are some measures which India had already started, and probably we're going to continue that way. So I think we are fortunate that we've got a very dynamic leadership, and I think we'll go ahead with that. Thank you.
I think, sir, my that got disconnected due to the light going out.
Yeah,
No
same
issue.
here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
now. In fact, there's a
Yes,
power
sir.
failure
Yeah.
here
Now,
also,
I
so I'll
think
just come out.
yeah. So the issue which is there is very pertinent, and I will thank the panelist, General Sudhakar Ji and Brigadier Rathore. The aspect which have been covered is the implication which are there overall, and rightly brought out that China is the one which is coming up, and maybe Asia which is catching up with the thing. And the aspect of maybe the historical perspective of non-alignment which comes in, and what General Sundarji had put across a very detailed version of what is going on at Alaska. Maybe next time, because what happens, what is going to come out of Alaska is the issue which we have to see and how it is going to impact the future requirement. And in the end, I would say that it is the analysis which has to go on, wherein we have to see the future. I would say the impact of immediate future, near future, and far future of the tariff tussles. And in the end, I would say that we can call it TTT, Trump's tariff tussles. So it is basically a three-team method which is going on, and how it is going to end, how it is going to improve. One option which is in my mind, comes to my mind when I was thinking of it for last a couple of weeks, is that it might lead to free trade agreements amongst the various nations. Like we had with the agreement with the UK, nearly things had been improved, and in a long-term perspective, that is one aspect, and maybe something will be coming up in the future, and impact will be on the industry, and realigning of the military alignments might be there, and it will have impact on the various the arms and things which are armed with armament being purchased and manufactured across the world. And with this, I'll go to Yuvraj. Yuvraj, can you please tell us about the questions are there, if any?
Yes, sir. Displayed on the screen, sir. Akash.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, Virender, you can go ahead.
But sir, I'll just I'm getting connected to my laptop. It will be a better version.
Okay, let me help you. Mr.
Yes,
Akash
yes.
Krishan Thadani has said, sirs, while dealing with the USA, Bharat has firmly stated that agriculture and dairy are non-negotiables. And during Operation Sindoor, we have destroyed US assets, including nuclear, in Pakistan. So he's not asking any question, he's giving a pointer. So what next? How can you negotiate and make
Yeah.
and do
Now
business
the
with
issue with actually, when you look at the our I would say the farmers issue, the dairy and GM seeds, genetically modified seeds which are there, which are going to probably one of the issues which will take a further toll into a long-term issues with the nation. It has been going on for a long time, and maybe this is one thing where it has a huge market for the US in India, and if it is impacted, then it will be dependent on US permanently. So the government policy which is there, which I am in agreement to that. Not only now, like initially we used to have GM genetically modified brinjal, bangan used to be there. A lot of things had gone. Get it. So that issue was by debated by the government at various levels. And even today, also, when you look at it, I think it needs to be put across that we have to not accept it outside, or maybe if it is done, then it because it is difficult for the farmers which are not so in other countries. The things are being available at a very reasonable cost. Maybe the subsidies are there, maybe some things are there, so they are more competitive than our own farmers.
Brigadier Virender,
Then
we'll take more number of questions. Let me quickly reflect on
yes, sir.
the spirit of the question. The spirit of the
Okay.
question is: time has come. India is no
Yeah.
longer a pushover. India is no longer a pushover. Okay.
No, yeah.
So, and therefore, so leave alone the agriculture or dairy, which are non-negotiable, you cannot bully and bulldoze your way through. Operation
Yeah.
Sindoor, we have destroyed US assets, including nuclear in Pakistan. It's F-16 and others have been destroyed. Okay, so therefore, USA is in a way, it has got jitters. It has shaken up. So we are not here to threaten the superpower. We are here to say that here is a time the India has grown up to assert assert its dominance with conviction. Whether support or no support, we will make. Cryogenic was denied to India, but it produced it indigenously. Prime Minister, in his statement yesterday, he brought out many issues. But I'm so happy, delighted to share that he summed up. See, can't my countrymen put their heads together and produce the aerospace engine? Aerospace engine is the critical. There are many critical components and critical parts that India requires today for security. But aerospace engine is actually been hanging fire and dragging its feet. Number two, he said, can't we have our own social media platform? Why are we dependent on WhatsApp and things like that? Why can't we have, like, you have your Facebook, you have your Telegram, you have host of why can't we have? Third thing, he said something regarding, I say, rare earth element survey and mining of the rare earth element. Why can't we dominate? We are at a receiving end. People are weaponizing all this, trying to show the team.
I think, sir, your voice is not being heard. Maybe the light have gone. Can you hear me, Brigadier Rathore?
Yes, I can. I can.
Okay, okay. I think
Uh,
what we'll do is we are running short of time.
any
So
more questions?
yeah, yeah. There is a basically no, Akash Krishnan Chandani has said that
Yeah, that I think we have debated that. Any
Bharat
more
Russia link,
questions?
Bharat Russia link up, which that's what he was saying. Maybe Bharat that is already there. I would say Bharat and Russia link up is the one issue
Yeah.
which is covered up. So that is the one which needs to be covered up, and maybe it will have more impact. We'll get I would say visibly more closer to Russia. That
Yeah.
impact will be part of that. I think these two questions are major ones. Rest all comments are there, so no questions. And I think General Sudhakar Jee is about to come online. Otherwise, I would say that a very thoughtful and mind intriguing session have been there, and the aspects which have been covered up are by Jan Sundarji is the Russia, China, the future things which are coming up, the geopolitical effects which are taking place, and with the Alaska meet, wherein Putin and Trump's what all they have done and how Putin has put across the Russia's historical perspective, I would say. And with that, probably the outcome might be the dollar rupee equations will change to some extent. And like it is, Janan Sundarji says, a temporary something realignment, and how it is going to develop in future. That issue is there. And future, immediate, near future, it has a thought process needs to be seen. So one has to see. Jan Sudhakar Ji is online. I'll just speak. Sir, I think we got disconnected. हाँ तो ठीक है सर मैं कंक्लूड आई एम कंक्लूडिंग सो दैट सर So with that, I'll thank the clause and with the Rajasthan's first podcast. So it is with this in the backdrop, we'll be covering more aspects and more issues related to not only the military, I would say, the other issues impacting the world order and impacting our country. And with that, Yuvraj, thanks a lot. And Roshan, thanks a lot. And thanks to Dushyant Singh for putting this new chapter onto line. With this, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.